Excuse me, Marie.
Mm-hmm.
Does that capture the book on the table? Does your camera?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ready?
Yes.
Action.
Good morning. You're listening to the Body Talk radio program, which addresses your mind, body, and soul. We encourage you to think. Body Talk is coming to you live on the No Static Radio Network located in Cleveland, Ohio. Body Talk is a program for your mind, body, and soul. We will have the news and topics and special guests that will have you thinking. To join the Body Talk discussion, please call area code 216-939-5087. That's area code 216-939-5087. Or you can email your questions and or comments to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com, bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com. Or if you're watching online, you can definitely make comments that will be saved and read on the air. First off, good morning to everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed a great, fun, safe, and super fantastic weekend. First and foremost, let's continue to celebrate the Black History Year for a lifetime. We have 313 days to discuss and share the majesty, the contributions, accomplishments, and must-know wonderment of our people. Our first guest this morning is a special guest, a great friend of mine, Miss Stacy Sufka. Stacy. It's always great when the audience claps for the guest, but never for the host. Stacy is one of the best and most talented strategists, analytical scientists, and business advisors and teachers I've had the opportunity to know, team with, and learn from. Stacy, welcome to the Body Talk program.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime, Stacy. Let's just dive right into it. Stacy, share with the listeners a little bit about your professional experiences.
So wow, I think my professional experience takes me back about 27 years
Okay.
in the behavioral healthcare nonprofit sector. About 27 years ago, I started out my career in behavioral health, and over the years, I've worked with many different populations, doing all kind of work, whether it's from HIV prevention work, working with homeless veterans and families, into administration. My career has led me to be an administrator for large non-for-profit organizations serving communities, mostly marginalized communities.
Okay. And just so the audience can understand, what does marginalized mean?
Those are individuals in the community who lack the resources, who lack really the resources necessary for a great quality of life. And great healthcare outcomes.
And something that a lot of people know a little bit about me, I'm a firm believer in education. So Stacy, please share with the audience your educational accomplishments.
My education accomplishment, well, I like to say I'm a lifelong learner, and so that's never going to stop. I feel like, education for me, it's been a pathway, out of poverty. Growing up in the South, in North Carolina, I was born to a mom, who didn't have access, to quality education, coming, from Puerto Rico, to New York. And so my grandma never had a college education. And so she kind of, worked in cleaning jobs, most of her life. And so early on in my life, I realized that education was a pathway out of poverty, for families like my own. And so for me, I've been committing my entire life, to education. And so I like to say I went to graduate school several times. And so
Well,
in my early career, I studied human services, and my human service experience really helped me understand, how to work with people, the needs of community members and various populations. And I became very interested in the systems the systems that those people have to access in order to receive services. And coming from poverty, I've encountered many systems, and so for me it was a personal mission, for me to become part of administration, to change systems in order to meet the needs of people. And so I went back to school, and I went back to school for a master's in public affairs and administration. There I really got to learn a lot about administration and what it means to be a great public administrator. What it means to plan, to organize, to staff, to develop, to report and budget, for these large systems, and how do you take resources and improve communities and the lives of those people that live in the communities. Go ahead.
No, well, Stacy's being very humble here, and that's one reason why we have always gotten along. She has an undergraduate degree, and you have what now, 3 or 4 master's degrees?
Absolutely. So I have a bachelor's in human services. I have a master's in public affairs and administration. My journey has taken me to a master's in counseling, and another master's in business analytics. I'm almost done with another master's in business administration, and I felt it was necessary to be able to develop out and to strengthen my business.
And before we really get into discussing your business, so you use these fancy terms, analytics. What is analytics?
It's taking information, taking data. Data is all around us. So really taking the data that's all around us and really creating, meaningful insights with that data. A lot of organizations, a lot of us produce data. We produce data on our phones. We produce data. Some of us even have smart refrigerators, right? So we're creating data every single day. And so a lot of organizations, have this data. And oftentimes, I found myself as a director of quality improvement at a nonprofit organization. I found myself really needing to gain meaningful insights, from the information that we were already producing. And so it became more and more important as healthcare began to change. I began to realize that it was going to be important for us to leverage that information and use it as an asset in order to be competitive. And so for me, it was so important to go from behavioral sciences, to an analytics program that will really help me take this information, create meaningful insights for the organization, and to make it more competitive. And so we're using the data around us really to have insights and to make use of it.
Okay, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, we're more of a data-driven society today. Just a hospital system or enterprise system basically looks at data to determine staffing levels and outcomes and et cetera, and what else might be there.
Absolutely, and I would say also that and these are sort of what you're talking about also is larger systems, right? So they have the knowledge, skills, abilities, and tools, right, in order for them to sort of leverage this asset, and so it's important for smaller organizations to know that they have similar assets. They just really need to understand how to organize those assets, and how to put those assets together and to create meaningful insights from those assets, so that they can become data, what I call not data driven, because data driven is really the data is driving your decisions, but more data informed, so that the data is sort of like a co-pilot with you. So you're merging your experience and also data in order to make better decisions.
So now that's a good segue into talking about Cladigy, your company, Cladigy Consulting. In how many words, and I'm not saying to be brief, what does Cladigy Consulting do? What is it comprised of?
We help small and mid-sized companies and organizations build their capacity to become more competitive, and to meet their goals and to achieve their mission's promise.
Okay. So what type of clients do you work with? And you don't have to give me the audience specific names, because I know there's some confidentiality here. Do you work in the not-for-profit arena?
So we work with nonprofit and for-profit. We usually work with the lower to mid market. And so we're working with small and mid-sized organizations. We've had federal clients. We've had healthcare clients. We've had non-for-profit clients. And we've had service organizations as well.
And I noticed now, Cladigy, will you also do interim management solutions? So in other words, if I engage you or retain you, whatever company I might work for, and say, well, you have something we don't have. Could you fill in for us right now until we can find, or you help us find somebody?
And we have, and so myself and another team member of mine have filled in. We like to call it fractional work. We provided fractional expertise, to organizations. Just an example of this would be an organization that I worked for, just about maybe a year ago. Who was experiencing turnover on their team. And so they had a critical position, an HR director position turnover, and the organization was trying to figure out, okay, how do we make sure that this turnover doesn't destabilize the organization, because they had not done any succession planning. I came in, I spent 4 months with the organization, helping to assess their systems and helping them really understand what they need in the next HR leader.
Okay, and I'm looking at your brochure, which is very nice. Your marketing material is outstanding.
Thank you.
And again, you have something on here, align your team. What does that mean?
So we use with our service line, Strategy assessments, we have psychometric testing available for not only individuals but teams, and to really help us understand the personalities, the interest, and the mindsets on your teams at the individual level. That assessment at a group level really helps us understand the dynamics, that are sort of at playing out, within your team. And sometimes those dynamics create conflict, and that conflict creates a lot of issues for your organizations, which leads to, you being less competitive than you could be.
Okay. Now that's interesting. See, a lot of organizations don't think they have internal conflict. Would you, just from your experiences, would you say that's one of the biggest obstacles to advancement, not on a personal level, but more so on an organizational level?
So I think conflict is always going to be there. We're in conflict every single day, even with ourselves, right? We're in conflict in our cars when we're driving to the station. I'm sure we've had some kind of conflict, right? The red light's taking too long, right? But I would say, yes, every organization where you have people, you have conflict. And it's really about, leaning into that conflict and really, using it as a learning experience. And I would also say, leveraging that conflict in order to make things better. So leaning into it, I would say, would be the most important piece there.
Now, I know you're an avid reader. I know that from knowing you. You have something down here, which I firmly believe in: increase the emotional intelligence of leaders and or potential leaders. Most people understand what intellectual intelligence means. That means the information you have internally or you've learned that you can process out. What does emotional intelligence? What is that?
It really means to understand your emotions and the emotions of others in a way that'll help you to leverage that information and to create or to build bridges to other people. So what it really means is that you have a true understanding of yourself, how you're feeling, why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and using that information in order to make informed decisions about how you're going to behave in the workforce with other people.
So, individuals' emotional intelligence, that also control the emotions. I understand that. Thank you. That also controls the language or the words they might use in a given situation.
So I like to say yes. It's how this person. So everybody. I mean, everyone in the workforce, we go through a series of experiences. We like to call those events. And your brain processes those events, and they're either good or they're bad, right? So they're coded with your brain, and so we're wired for fight or flight, right? And
right.
so your brain really sees this as a sort of as a good stimuli or bad stimuli. And what happens oftentimes is that the way we process the information is going to dictate how we behave. And so it's so important for us to understand, to make sense of this information and to understand how to use this information. And that information will dictate how we sort of behave in the world, how we show up in the world.
You're listening to the Body Talk radio program on the No Static Radio Network. If you have questions or comment, please feel free to call area code 216-939-5087, or you can email your question and comments to bodytalkradio.program@gmail.com. Right now we have Stacy Sufka with us, and she's the proud founder and owner of Gladgy Consulting. Now let's talk about some specific things here. You have several different offerings, and I'm not trying to say this is all you do, because I know you do a lot of great things.
Thank you.
So, strategic planning. What is strategic planning?
It's really taking information that we have, internal and external information, and really helping the organization to visualize, not only to visualize, but to really put in place, the steps necessary in order for them to achieve their goals, in order for them to remain sustainable and competitive in the market.
Okay. Change management.
So change management, it's really about helping the individuals in your organization come along on that journey, making sure that they're involved in that strategy, making sure that that you have buy-in, for the changes. It's one thing to have a strategic plan on paper. It's another thing for it to come to life and to be implemented, and for your people to be on board.
So is that, let me use another fancy term, is that execution or action?
It could be implementation and execution,
Implementation.
strategy execution.
Okay.
So change management is really minding that people side of change, not just the project management part. Putting the people together, putting the grids together, putting the timelines together, putting the resources into it. It's really making sure that your change is not leaving your people behind.
I'm going to skip over them, but I'm going to come back to it.
Absolutely.
Leadership retreats. You'll actually take the leadership team on, or do it internal, and do retreats to do what?
Absolutely. So we're doing leadership retreats in.
Any hesitation, I will tell you that I do know these individuals, or that I have worked with them, such as I did with Stacy. And I am going to share with you, and I'm honored that I do know this gentleman here. And it's been an honor and a privilege. He's provided services for me. And the one reason I have him on the show is not, he doesn't give me a discount yet, but I have him on the show because he does good work. And the other individuals that I referred him to personally, they reap lavish praise on him. So first off, I'd like to thank or welcome Mr. Howard Hopkins to the show.
Thank you.
Let's get right into the interview. First off, Howard, tell us a little bit about who you are.
All right. Well, I'm a small town boy from Lansing, Michigan, and I moved here. It's kind of a funny story. I actually moved here from Dallas, and I left my hometown when I was 19 with just the clothes on my back. Moved across country to Dallas, and spent about 3.5 years there, and kind of after a year of college and wrestling in college, and moved to Dallas and enjoyed it down there, and decided to move back up here with my mom here in Cleveland, and came back around '88, and I've been here ever since.
Now, when you returned to Cleveland, what were your goals? What did you have?
Yeah.
What was on Howard's plan sheet? I don't want to use some of Stacy's terms.
It's okay. My plan sheet was 5 and out. I was going to go back to school, finish school. I wanted to accomplish a few things, I wanted to at least have my house and nice car, and I wanted to live out in the country, and I had all these goals, right? And because I had the experience of living in a big city like Dallas, Fort Worth area, I felt at the time that, the world was mine. Now, if I can do that, I can go anywhere, right? However, I've still been here because Cleveland is very rich in so my goal sheet got readjusted a little bit. And, and I was a young guy moving back here to Cleveland. I was probably like 22, 23 years old, and still hadn't found myself, what, I really wanted to do in life. So I had my hands in a lot of things.
Now, if I remember one of our discussions, within this so-called goal sheet, this 5-year goal, You wanted to be a police officer.
I did. I did.
And if I remember, you entered the academy or some aspect of
I
it.
took training at Tracy.
Okay.
Yep.
And you completed that, but you didn't, I don't want to say didn't finish. You didn't become a police officer.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So instead of becoming a police officer, you did what?
I did security.
You did security,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But what I'm trying to get you to lead into is this men's warehouse.
Oh, okay. Well, that came a few years down the line. So let me kind of give you the timeline a little bit. So I decided not to be a cop, and then I was doing while I was doing security, I decided that police work wasn't something that I wanted to do. Then I got into the restaurant business, and I was bartending, waiting tables, and doing this, that, and the other. And while I was doing that, I decided that I wanted to do outside sales. So I joined an organization called Frontier Communications. Frontier Communications back in the day was a telecom company that offered cellular services, T1 services, everything telecommunications. So I was doing that as an outside sales job. One of the challenges was finding your territory as an outside salesperson. So of course, me wanted to take on, very new in the business, kind of didn't know much, was kind of spinning my wheels, but I wanted to take on the challenge of what's the hardest market out there, and that's downtown. And to be in telecommunications and trying to get clients, businesses, and things like that in the downtown areas, almost impossible. Because I knocked on a lot of doors. I could tell you every building down here, I've been in probably all of them, knocked on every door, a lot of doors slammed in my face, a lot of, people just kind of look at you just like, no, just don't even try it.
So from that, what did you learn about yourself? Especially, I don't want to call them, I don't like to use the term failures. I call them learning experiences. What did you learn about yourself?
Well, what it really taught me is that you can do anything you want to do. It also taught me not to give up, never quit. Because no doesn't mean no. No means just not right now. And also no means that I haven't given you enough reasons to say yes to me yet. So it taught me how to sharpen my skills, how to readjust my plan and my programs, my approach to make sure that I get the best outcome as possible. So that led me to one more door, which is this company it's a private company called the Tom James Men's Clothing Company. And that's an outside sales clothing company where you do it by appointment only. It's high-end clothing, do it by appointment only, either in your office or your home. And I ran into these guys, and I walk in the door, and I'm kind of like, what do you guys do? And this is while I'm cold calling, right? And they discussed what they did, and so I sent them a letter like a week later. They were impressed with me. They hired me on. I did that job for probably 5.5, 6 years, and was pretty good at it. Okay, still young in mind, still wasn't as focused as I really wanted to be. And while I was doing that, the Men's Warehouse organization heard about me, and they wanted me to manage their stores. So I interviewed with one of their regional managers, Tony Owens, who is unfortunately not with us anymore, one of the greatest guys I've ever met in my life. Some of you out there might even know who I'm talking about, because he was very active in the community, and he was my mentor. Hired me on, and so that's when back in 2001, I was hired in as a manager of the men's warehouse.
Yeah. And just hold on for a minute, Howard. You're listening to the Body Talk Radio program on the No Static Radio Network. If you have any questions or you'd like to make a comment, please feel free to call area code 216-939-5087. And or you can email your questions or comments to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com. So, Men's Warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Then they made this acquisition
Yes.
of
Purchasing Joseph A. Banks.
Joseph. And a lot of people would think it would be the other way around.
They thought.
They thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in full discovery, that's where I met Mr. Hopkins,
Yep. At the Joseph A. Bank in Legacy Village.
Legacy Village.
Yes.
So we're giving them a shameless plug, but we'll get them to give us some money later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So, I met you there,
Yes.
and we talked, and we became talking friends.
Mhm.
Then we became friends
Mm-hmm.
because Howard at the time he tailored me out for some custom made suits.
Yes.
Okay, which I still wear. I have. And
Good.
Thank you, Howard.
I'm glad.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Make sure you tell everybody that who did that for you.
What's your name again? No, Howard Hopkins at Joseph Bank. So one of the things that we would talk about, I would say, well, I'll come back to the store on Tuesday if I was in town. And Howard would say, well, I'm not going to be here. I said, well, what about next Tuesday? I'm not going to be here. And I said, why are you always off on Tuesday? And you said, you have these side
Yes.
jobs that you were doing. What
Tuesday
were
was
you
designated for my side window cleaning.
doing? Okay. And
Yeah.
if I recall, and the number could be high or low, doesn't matter. You had about 5 or 6 clients
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
And most of them were commercial,
Mhm.
if I remember
Matter of
correctly.
fact, all of them were.
Yeah, all of them were commercial. So we talked and we shared some ideas on how he could grow or whatever. But come to find out, that wasn't all you did. You just didn't do windows.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you do, Howard?
I did power washing, leaf removal, and yeah, stuff like that. Just
Now, when you say power washing, you mean you power wash my house, driveway?
yeah, I can power wash your house, driveway, whatever I can reach with my power washer. I clean it off.
And this gave birth to what company?
Okay, so that gave birth to Hopkins Window Cleaning LLC.
Okay.
Just to give you guys some information on that, I'm sitting down with my wife, and one of the things that was she blessed me with, it's kind of surprised me on Father's Day. This is probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Is that she was nice enough to, because she always heard me talking about it, and my struggles and all that kind of thing, and she surprised me with, my LLC certification. I was like, look at you, girl, go ahead, put your ass up. So that was great, and still I hadn't left Joseph Banks yet, and I had acquired even more commercial businesses, and I think the point that we're getting to is me leaving.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
And see, this is good that we had Stacy on first because she used this fancy term called capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could have left Joseph Bank after you had 10 commercial accounts,
Sure.
but you didn't. You kept building capacity, and more clients, meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to the point where you had to make a decision. Do you continue to go to Joseph Bank and try to do this Hopkins Window Cleaning LLC at midnight, or try to do it during the day or in the afternoon?
Right.
So you made a decision to leave Joseph Bank.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the name of your company is Hopkins Window Cleaning LLC,
Mm-hmm.
right? And do you have a website we can go visit?
Yes.
And
It's
what is that?
HopkinsWindowCleaning.com.
HopkinsWindowCleaning.com. And do you have a phone number we can reach you?
I sure do. You can reach me at 216-403-0634.
And what's that again, Howard?
216-403-0634.
34. Okay. So share with, and again, with all due disclosure, you have done services at my home.
Mm-hmm.
You have done windows, which are still clean, so I have to have you come back again and share.
Absolutely.
And you power washed the house and you've done the driveway and some other things, and referred you to people up and down the block and
Sure.
some other people, and you landed the business because you're good at what you do. The one thing that, tell the people about some of the homes that you've done on, let's say, Fairmont.
Okay, so fortunately, I've had a great opportunity to see a lot of things that we drive by every day. You know, we drive by and we even take like Sunday afternoons or an afternoon and get with the family and say, hey, you know, let's just drive through that neighborhood and kind of see, you know, just look at the houses, right? Because you're never going to be in them, but you can at least look at them. So fortunately, here in the last couple of years, I've been referred to some really good opportunities of some very significant houses in the Fairmont area, Cleveland Heights area, Fairmont area, Shaker area, University Heights area. So I've been blessed to see, to be inside a lot of these homes that you would never get an opportunity to get inside, and I've had the great opportunity and the humble opportunity to service these people and cleaning their windows.
You're listening to Mr. Howard Hopkins from Hopkins Window Cleaning Service on on the Body Talk Radio program on the No Static Radio Network. If you have any questions or comments, you can call area code 216-939-5087, or you can email them to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com.
I do want to touch on something.
Sure.
That's been great, but also I want to humble myself a little bit because I do all kinds of sizes houses, right? You know, that's on the super blessed end, and I'm blessed with any client that I get. So I do small to medium sized houses to grand houses as well. So that's not I shouldn't say that's my niche, if you will, but I've had a great opportunity to be moving into that direction.
Oh no, and then I was going to actually ask you that question, because you do any size home. Yeah. And one thing, and you are a humble guy. A lot of people won't pick that up, but Howard really is. And I'm not going to tell you where he lives, but when you walk out his backyard, you can see the lake. So he doesn't live in a small home himself. But one of the things that's important, Howard, is especially on this segment, okay, the small business, Main Street, and I call it Main Street for a reason. A lot of minority business owners don't have an opportunity to tell their story. And when you talk about or share your story, what's a lot of people don't understand, it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
And that's why I had you, and I appreciate you sharing what you did in Dallas and how long you were there, and you came back here and did this and did that. And you have this wonderful wife who paid for your LLC. And Howard has a basketball team at home with children.
Sure. Yes.
And he does. And all of his children, and they're brilliant. And that's probably not giving them all the honor that they deserve. He has one daughter who's a college graduate now, and she is a what, Howard?
She is a data scientist.
Okay, but what was her major in college?
She wanted to be an actuary.
An actuary. And if people don't...
Actuarial science. Yes.
That's not easy, and I'm not making fun of anybody who's a PE major. An actuarial scientist, that's deep.
Yeah.
That's
she's kind of off the hook when it comes to, and she's diligent about. This is my stepdaughter, but she's diligent about her job. She is no joke. She succeeds all the time. She has gotten continuous raises since she's been there, 2.5, 3 years, and she's just excelled like every year. So she's done really, really well.
She somewhat takes after her dad, because I remember sitting. Well, we were actually standing because you wouldn't give me a chair. We were standing.
Actually, she takes more after her mom, but
she takes after her dad, my show. So one of the things that I noticed about you, you never ever wanted to give up.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. No matter how down, and believe me, I have my times where I feel the weight of the world is on me. And however, I've always been known as a fighter. I've never been without work. Um, I always tell even my kids, find a way. You can find a way. Um, just don't quit. No matter what the circumstances is, this is the United States of America. We can find a way to make it happen.
And see, that's interesting because we're in Black History Year. See, one of the things that I'm picking up about, I don't care what generation it is, we becoming quitters now. Not to the extreme, but let's say we're 30-40% there now. And we have to learn not to quit. So when they hear or see people such as yourself, and I'm not having you on the show because you struggle, and you're going to continue to struggle. Anybody who owns their own business struggles,
Mm-hmm.
because success is measured not by somebody else, but in your own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, I'm measuring you, if I may help. And I'm just not saying this because you're sitting here. You've been successful. You're successful. If you stop and think, and we're going to go back, I think it's been 6 years now, when we first met,
Mm-hmm.
Howard Hopkins only took Tuesdays off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not at Joseph Bank anymore.
Nope.
And see, one thing I'm gonna have you share with the audience. Talk about Phoenix. What do you want to do in Phoenix?
Well, I think overall, I did spend some time last year out in Phoenix, and with my cousins, I was out there, kind of a boy trip, and I was thinking opportunity of growth, and I'm like, if I can have business here through, the spring, summer here, and when it starts to get cold here, well, why not move or have the business working for you in another area? So when I was out in Phoenix, I'm taking a look around, and it's desert, and it's dirty, and it's windy, and windows get dirty, and so I'm like, woo, wait a minute, there's opportunity here. And I also, while I was there, I really looked up how many window cleaning companies there actually were advertised or being out there, and it was only like a handful. I'm sure there's probably more than that, but I was really surprised. So I saw opportunity. So one of my dreams would be to, or I should say one of my goals, let me just keep it as a dream right now because I have not made it a goal, to branch out and spend some time out there and get my business going out there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Phoenix. It could be another location where
Could be Dallas.
Yeah,
Could be Tucson.
It could be anywhere. And so yeah, it just kind of got my blood flowing of wanting to, expand as much as I can. It's because, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and I'm trying not to be in the field as much as I am, and really start to get this business to start working for me.
Well, see, one of the things that you shared before we continue, Howard, you're listening to the Body Talk radio program on the No Static Radio Network. If you have any questions or comments, you can call 216-939-5087, or you can email them to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com. See, one of the things that when you mentioned Phoenix to me, I guess it's been about a couple of years now, that long, and I saw your eyes light up. And if you know Howard, when his eyes lights up, he's going to do it. And I'm not trying to drum up business for Stacy, but you and Stacy should have a conversation. You really should. But one of the things that I admire about you is that no give up attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think one day I shared with you, I'm going to call it one of my mantras, is that you have to have commitment, dedication, and be willing to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And I've seen you do that. And I continue to see you do that. And I hope that this radio program not only elicits calls for services for you, but it also helps you realize your dream about things. But with that, you also have a couple people who help you sometimes.
Sure. Well, actually, the main one is my stepson.
Okay.
Yeah, my stepson Joe, who is a fireman now, and out in Berea. However, yeah, he helps me periodically to when I get big jobs and I need somebody to help me along, because he's done it before. It's really helpful to have him come along and help me.
So we're going to go back to the capacity term because he's used to going on those high ladders as a fireman.
Yeah.
That's what he was trying to do. You also sort of added another vertical to your company.
Mhm.
Not only does he, let's say, do some of the high windows along with you on these two-story big mansion type homes, he also does gutters.
Yeah, I can do gutters too. Yeah.
So you started off just on windows.
I started off just doing windows, and how I went about doing that is that I knew a few people. I got some good breaks. Started with like one pizza shop, and it just blossomed into probably more than a couple handfuls of commercial businesses right now. But what happened is that turned into, you know, having the opportunity to do residential. Now, obviously, just a couple years ago, and I admit one of my focuses this year is to do a more marketing, because I always wanted to kind of be that company that remains small-minded, or I should say small in theory. And what I mean by that is that I want my customers to feel like this is more of a personal kind of thing, instead of like, here comes this company just gonna come in and whip through and do their thing and be gone. And when I talk to my clients, I always let them know, I say, hey, listen, you know, this is my thing, and I really want you to understand that I take this very seriously, and it's very personal to me. And I'm not the biggest company out there by far, and I'm not the smallest, I'm not the most expensive, and I'm surely not the cheapest. However, but what you're gonna get is you're gonna get a high-end quality finish that you're gonna be happy with. So yeah, that's kind of you know, where I'm at. And just to touch on, you know, the no quitting part of it, is that there's been times where I've had situations where, you know, I've offered a bid to somebody and they're just like, heck no, absolutely. And you got to remember that you're not going to be able to please everybody. And because on one end, you're going to have people that are like, no big deal, cool, all right, great, let's get it done. And then you're going to have people that are just pretty much going to nickel and dime you. But know your value and know your worth, and know that your time means something to you and to them.
And you're listening to the Body Talk Radio program on the No Static Radio Network. If you have any questions or you want to make a comment, you can call area code 216-939-5087, or you can email your comments and questions to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com. Let's take a soft stop from your business for a minute. So you're back in Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
and you have some history in what's known as the Lee Harvard area.
Yeah, I used to live over there. I used to live like right on Chagrin Boulevard, and so when I was a young spry, you know, I used to ride my bike all up and through there, and knew a few people, and people that I haven't seen in like forever. But yeah, I know that area.
So that was what, 4 or 5 years ago when you young spry.
Sure.
Yeah. So you've seen that community change.
Yeah.
Has it changed for the better or for the worse?
Yeah, you know, actually, just to be quite blunt, Lee Road is kind of scary, man.
It is.
You know, it's
Scary.
it's not. When you travel down the street, you better have your third eye, you know, going when you go down. And I'm not saying so much during the day, but still, even during the day, it hurts my feelings to go down that road and see how back in the day, how there was a sense of pride about the place. And now you drive through, and I just don't know where all the pride went.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's just no prideful. There's no prideful energy
Mm-hmm.
in that area.
Well, why do you think that happens? Well, we won't get into a cultural discussion, but where did the pride go?
You know, brother, that's a good question. That is a grand question.
Excuse me, can I answer that?
Yeah.
So, if we're talking about the same, especially the same part, I live on the Clover side and right across from the Lee Harvard Shopping Plaza.
Okay.
But of course, you know, that's my area, and so like, I think one of the biggest discernments outside of that area is heading up towards Chagrin. I think that Shaker has dropped off tremendously. I think they've done that because that area is mostly a melanated area, and so they really don't care. You know, the streets are absolutely terrible. You know, the businesses that are empty haven't been kept up. The properties on them haven't been kept up, and I think they just stopped caring about that area, you know, because it's...
Well, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
I mean, you said Shaker.
Yes.
Right? Are you talking about Shaker proper?
Lee Road.
I
The
get
Lee
I
Road
get it. I
area.
get it. However, we're not talking about Shaker City.
Mm-hmm.
But are we talking about Cleveland, or are we talking about Shaker?
I'm talking about Shaker City too.
Okay. Now, Shaker only goes up so far
Mm-hmm.
to what?
Invermere. It ends at Invermere.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And then after that, that's Cleveland's responsibility.
Yes.
So it would obviously be taking a joint effort
Yes.
between Cleveland and Shaker to kind
Absolutely.
of come together and say, wait a minute.
So for the Cleveland end, that has a lot to do with, you know, the works and the effort that our councilman puts in to make sure that it's taken care of. And neither one of them, past or present, have done that.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the businesses, even the closed businesses, their properties being made, same thing.
Well, if I can just, here's the thing about pride, if you will.
Mhm.
And the thing that, you know, I'm not a political guy.
Mhm.
I'm not in the political field.
Mm-hmm.
I've admired you from a distance as far as, you know, you stepping your foot in it and things like that. However, the thing that I can say is that since we're talking about pride and we're talking about councilmen, councilwomen, where is your pride at?
Mm-hmm.
To where when you wake up in the morning and you walk up and down these streets
Mm-hmm.
or drive, or hopefully you get out of your car every once in a while and stay in touch with your constituents in the community, you should be demanding something to say, this is not how I want to be represented.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
why are you okay with that?
I'm not, and I have, like, you know, on a personal note, like, you know, when I go into the stores over here, even though I really don't visit the Lee Harvard Plaza too much, it's a little bit too much for me over there.
Sure.
But like the, you know, the surrounding areas, the stores and stuff, like when there's shopping carts all over the place, I'll make sure that mine is put up and all the rest of them. You know, I'll pick up stuff, you know, especially the atrocious stuff. Like, you have no business seeing diapers and stuff laying around. And then I've personally gone to these gas station owners, Miles and Lee, which is really just too far gone, to the point where I haven't gone back, you know.
Yeah.
But not only is it unsafe, but it's unkept.
Well, that's because we're allowing that.
Yeah.
The powers to be
enough
are
people
allowing
complaining.
that. I mean, okay, I'm just gonna touch on something real quick. You don't really have to complain to know that this is an issue if
Yes.
you're in the position of doing something about it. Because if you're in this area, and like I said, if you get out of your car every once in a while and just even walk up and down the street, you know this isn't right.
Yeah. for sure.
And just to let everybody know, this can be changed fairly quickly.
But how has it changed?
Yeah, that's,
Well, and let me piggyback and keep your thought about the pride comment. This evening in the city of Shaker Heights, they're going to discuss the ordinance to change Lee Road up to Invermere. Lee Road's going to go from a 2-lane street to 1.
Why?
Well,
That's not smart.
well, what's the reason? 'Cause
well, when you, and I'm not trying to demean Shaker Heights. I have some enemies and friends that live in Shaker Heights. But when you go to a 1-lane road, it diminishes the traffic.
Sure.
So it's going to either cut off the traffic from Shaker into Cleveland, and it's going to diminish from Cleveland into Shaker. They're also discussing changing or addressing what's called the streetscape, what the businesses must look like up and down Lee Road, and that will also include Chagrin. 9.9% is going to pass. It's going to pass in Shaker. To go back to your pride comment, and we will return to your business in a minute.
No, it's fine.
Well, thank you for letting you interview me. So, when you go back to the pride issue, that can be changed, as you said. It can be changed by people deciding to come out and make the change by voting. You cannot continue to do or keep the same person or do the same thing and think you're going to get a different result.
Mm-hmm.
I call Ward 1 Ward 0 now. And one of the comments I did make, I said, please take a picture of your ward today, your community, your neighborhood, because this is the best you're going to see it. Because the current council boy that's there does nothing.
Yeah.
He has signs up that says, I'm working hard for you, which should be changed, I'm hardly working for you. You're listening to the Body Talk radio program on the No Static Radio Network. If you have any comments or questions, you can call area code 216-939-5087 or email them to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com.
I have a question.
Yes.
What do you think about those two speed bump thingies that are on, what is that? Judson. What do you think about those? I can tell you what I think about them. I think that it was a terrible idea and they're very unsafe. Like, I grew up drag racing, like, I grew up, so, like, if they don't stop, if they refuse to slow down, like, those things could, like, catapult into somebody's house. I don't think it was a good idea.
Well, I can see it on both sides.
Yeah.
For me personally, slow up, because you're going to tear your car
But
up.
we got a lot of, like, they don't care.
Well,
Unfortunately, like, in the middle of the intersection right there, heading towards Charles W. Eliot and John F. Kennedy, like, that's where they do their drifting at. Cause I live, like on Clover side,
I've heard about
so
it.
I hear, and of course they do it over there in the Lee Harvard Plaza, but they do all their drifting over there and stuff, and if they're running from the police, stuff like that could happen. I just don't think that was a good idea for them to put those, in.
So what's the alternative?
Have someone patrol the area, at least one car, per shift could patrol the area. I know they can't be everywhere, and we went, I think, we've been set back a lot with our police unit, and a lot of people, we don't have a lot of police officers available, but there are, 2 police officers and 1 car per shift that could patrol the area. Areas. Our areas are problem areas.
Well,
So
let's say this, and we'll continue the conversation. See, one of the things that people, or voters, citizens, residents, don't pay attention to, they don't pay attention to the people they elect. We're going through Cleveland is going through a budget cycle.
I didn't vote for him. I didn't.
Congratulations.
Both times.
We'll get you a cupcake later. One of the things that voters don't pay attention. And what's important here, discuss the speed bumps. You can put speed bumps on every street if you wanted to, if the money was there. That's not going to solve the issue. There's no such thing as an absolute perfect law-abiding citizen or city. Somebody's always going to break speed limits or whatever. The police department is short officers. They're short. And I think part of the excuse, well, it's tough to recruit, that's a given. But one of the things that you cannot continue to use that as an excuse. Now, there's only 1 traffic car in the 4th district. 4th district's the largest district in the city of Cleveland, 17 square miles. That car cannot be everywhere. But there should be a presence of zone cars patrolling the neighborhood. Zone cars can write traffic tickets, speeding tickets, or whatever. What we don't have, and let me draw back to the budget. there's a reduction of officers taking the number down to 1495. I don't know why they just didn't make it 1500, but it's 1495. What you don't fund, you don't believe in. It's simple. I'm gonna use you and Marie, if everybody didn't know that was Marie speaking. One of the things that if each one of you had $300 to go grocery shopping for your families, and the family's expecting you to come home at 5 o'clock with the bags, but you walk in the door with nothing. Maybe you spent it on some shoes, or you blew it on the lottery or whatever. You just didn't do it. And you have your 5 children and your spouse sitting around the table ready to eat, and you didn't bring the food home, but you spent it on something else. But you didn't care. You're not funding the food, so you don't care technically about the folks around the table. City Council is going to pass the present budget. They're not going to realign anything. And by statute, by ordinance actually, they have to go through this dog and pony show to say, well, we're going to ask questions. You have councilmen asking, well, I need to talk to you. And you've been in office 8 years, and you've never talked to anybody in the police department or deputy chief or somebody like that. Like you said, Howard, people don't get out, whoever the elected official is, elected person, doesn't get out his or her car. Now, I grew up in the Lee Harvard area, and I walked the wards with what I consider the greatest councilman in my lifetime, Judge White. He did that. He talked to people. The pride is no longer there, because if I don't care, you're not going to care until we get back to that. But let's go back. We'll save the political discussion after the interview, or we'll have you come back.
Okay.
You're listening to the Body Talk radio program on the No Static Network. If you have any questions or comments, you can call area code 216-939-5087, or you can email them to the Body Talk radio program at gmail.com. So you mentioned this wonderful wife who paid for your LLC, okay, and your business is still creeping up here, like the temperature or somebody's blood pressure.
It increased last year by 65%.
I don't know if you heard, Howard, how much did your business grow last year?
My business grew 65% last year.
Okay, is that in the number of clients, or is that in revenue?
That's revenue.
Now, and I don't want you to tell me what your revenue is. You can tell me offline, but I'm not going to ask you. See, when you talk about 65% growth, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it surprised me. I kind of, knocked some numbers around, and I was like, whoa, wow.
Well, first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
But now let's go back to this. You didn't quit. Just think if you would have quit.
Yeah. Yeah. There was, and here was a learning lesson for me. I was actually given a quote to one of my wife's high school best friend's sister, who was very affluent in a certain neighborhood. I'm not going to mention it. However, I quoted her, and I misquoted the job. Totally misquoted it. Pissed her off. Excuse my French. Upset her quite a
Excuse me,
bit.
Howard Hopkins, if the FCC is listening.
I can't say piss?
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
It's okay?
Howard Hopkins
All right.
said it twice.
Okay. Anyway, I mean, and I felt really, really bad, because not only did I feel bad that I lost an opportunity, but I felt bad because I upset kind of a family friend. And I really felt embarrassed for my wife, because I'm like, wow, I don't want to ruin her name, attached to me, and the people that she knows. And it really, really beat me up. I was really beating myself up over this one opportunity. And it took me a minute to kind of get over it. And then I woke up one morning like, man, get over it. You're not going to please everybody. You're going to have situations where you're going to make mistakes, but you got to learn from it. You're going to have people unhappy with you. You got to learn from it. You got to own it, and then you just have to move on. If you hang your head on every downfall that you have, even just one, you're never going to get to the next opportunity. So So just for all of you out there that struggle sometimes, and you know you run into a situation that feels like it's so major, as long as you have breath in your body, you're fine. You'll be okay. Move on. It'll be challenging to mentally to get through it, but you'll be okay. Just keep taking one step forward, another step forward, and then eventually you'll leave that behind you, and things will continue to get better.
Let me ask you a quick question. For every 5 no's, how many yeses do you receive?
They're probably a half of one, but at least one.
One?
Yeah.
Wow.
So now that your business has grown 65%, if you're, and this includes your commercial clients with contracts, you do what? Maybe 2-3 homes a day?
No, not quite that many. I could. That would be fantastic. I probably do at least in the heat of the summer. I probably for me, I probably do at the most 4 a week.
4 a week?
Yeah.
So do you work on the weekends?
I do work on the weekends. Yeah.
So Howard Hopkins will come to your house on a Saturday, Monday through Saturday.
Monday through Saturday. If it's a special situation, I can even do a Sunday. You know, I'm not against that. I've done it plenty of times. It's not against me. However, I do choose to have Sunday as a day of obvious rest and family and things like that. But I'm not against getting up early in the morning, knocking it out, and getting the rest of my day on.
Just real quick on your family. You have a daughter who's about to graduate from high school this year.
Yes,
Has she selected a college?
she has.
And if you want to, if it's not a secret,
No, she's going to Cleveland State.
congratulations to her. A Viking.
Yeah, Vikings.
So you got her the Mustang.
What?
Not yet,
No,
right?
not yet. She'll be living on campus, so
That's good.
She won't need.
She's another brilliant young lady.
Very, very brilliant, very beautiful, very good artist as well.
Tell us about before I ask him about his son. His son is a mechanical engineering genius. But tell us about your son.
Oh, my baby?
Yeah.
John Michael. Yeah, this kid is he's crafty, man. He'll look at something, a diagram of something, and you know it'll frustrate the living daylights out of him, right? And he'll stomp his feet and growl, but he'll figure it out. And it doesn't look like he's making it at first, because sometimes I'm like, dude, man, come on, bro. I mean, you'll be all right. And he's just like, Dad, just leave me be. Just leave me be. Let me find it out myself. Let me work it out myself. Let me just do me. And I have to learn as a dad sometimes that, you know, my way isn't the best way. And even though his way in my mind isn't the best way to go about it, it works for him. And I have to pull off the reins a little bit and just let him go and figure it out. And he's a self-taught artist. Doesn't like painting, but with a pen, the boy he's a monster.
Now, I'm not saying real quick, but let's talk about, all of them are important, but let's talk about the most important one. The bride. Your
Oh,
wife.
yes.
Oh,
Yes, my wife Sally. Yeah.
and she's a teacher,
Yes.
and she's the artsy, crafty one.
Yes, she's a fine artist herself. Absolutely.
And if anybody ever has the opportunity to visit their home,
See, he making a side joke just because I'm not going to. Yeah, okay.
they have some of the grandest party events, and I don't mean it's not 50, 60 people, it's primarily family.
We entertain our family
Right.
quite a bit.
And
for most holidays and things like that.
you do detective nights and all this other.
My wife is very good at figuring out and making sure that the kids always have something to do.
Right.
And she has been phenomenal with making sure that, you know, if it's not something as quick as going to the art museum or science center or you know, going to the park and taking pictures here and there, or sitting at the table and, you know, drawing and Just she's always, and of course, I'm sure it's the teacher in her, but she always makes sure that the family is taken care of.
And if you, real quick, what did you do for Valentine's Day this year?
Boy.
Did you have
Did
a
you see
sign?
that?
Tell everybody about the picket sign you had.
So it was Valentine's morning, or actually the night before. I was like, I got to do something different this year. I really do. And so I got up the next morning. Obviously, it was on a Tuesday. On my Tuesdays where I do windows, so I had to go up and do my windows. And it was my big day. So I got all my window cleaning business out of the way, and I came home and I found this blank board, or it was
Cardboard.
it was actually, yeah, it's cardboard, whatever. And so I spray painted it and decorated it and put on there, with spray paint, which was kind of sloppy in my mind. And my wife was like, "Oh, it was fine, it was great." But I said, "You're my Valentine." And however, I drove to her school, so I put it on I made a picket sign out of it. And so I went down to her school in front of her window. She's up on the second floor of her school, and I'm standing out there with this sign, looking all pitiful, and because of course she didn't know I was there. And so I texted one of her friends. I called one of her co-workers and said, "Hey, have her look out the window." And so I'm at her school with this sign, saying, "You're my Valentine." And
Before we wrap up, this is Howard Hopkins, and you own what company?
Hopkins Window Cleaning,
And
LLC.
what's your website?
Website is hopkinswindowcleaning.com.
And how do we get in touch with you?
You can reach me at 216-403-0634. You can also catch me on Facebook. And if anybody out there knows what Nextdoor is, you can catch me on Nextdoor as well.
And real quick, like I ask every guest during the program, who is your Black History hero or shero?
Well, actually, I thought about this, and actually, I would say that it's my dad.
All right.
My dad retired as a General Motors operations manager who ran all 4 General Motors plants in Lansing, Michigan. And he was also here in Lordstown years ago running the production plant in Lordstown. And then he went back to Lansing, Michigan to continue running all 4 plants there. He was instrumental in my dad was a no-nonsense kind of guy, and he didn't really give you anything. And if you wanted something, you had to go get it yourself. And that was one of the things that gave me the tenacity to what I have now, is that you can't rely on anybody else to do anything for you but you. And he started as a security guard, and then he went to the line, and then he progressed through there to where he was kind of the man when he left.
Well, I can say this for your father, knowing you, and I've never met him. He did a great job, there's
Thank
no
you.
question. And I can see your dad in you. As I said, never met him. Before we leave, I'm going to just give you who my Black History hero is. It's Mr. Jim Williams. James Williams is his real name, but if you got to know him, you call him Jim. I met and worked with Mr. Williams here in Greater Cleveland.
Mhm.
He was the first Black U.S. Attorney of the Northeast Ohio District, and he still holds that record today. No Black man or woman has ever served as the U.S. Attorney in Northeast Ohio. While he was in office, he helped create special investigative teams, strike force teams, which I had an opportunity to serve on, do whatever. And he also was the national president of Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated.
Okay.
Obviously, he was an attorney. After his tenure as the U.S. Attorney here in Northeast Ohio, he went back to Summit County. He was originally from Akron. And he became a judge. And not only do I remember him as U.S. Attorney, nice guy, he was the one who sentenced Jeffrey Dahmer to prison.
Oh,
Wow.
how about that?
And he's deceased now. His son is alive. His son still might be in office. He was a councilman in Akron for a while, but just an outstanding man.
Mhm.
You've been listening to the Body Talk radio program on the No Static Network. We've had a very wonderful guest, or actually 2 guests, but the current guest, Mr. Howard Hopkins. Earlier, we from the 11 to 12 hour, we had Mrs. Stacy Sufka, a strategist, a consultant, Miss Everything, if I may. And both of these people do it well, and I'm honored to say that I know them personally, and I know that both of you will continue well. And thank you, Howard, for being a guest on.
Thank you for having me, man. This is outstanding. I'm also, yes, I'm also very, very proud of you as well.
Well, thank you, Howard.
Yes.
Well, I look forward to having you and come back sometime soon. Keep growing that business.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Howard.
Yep. All right.
You did okay.
I did all right.
You did all right.
It's all right.
No, you did good. I'm proud of you. Tell me his name off the list.
Oh man. Yeah, we could have a political conversation some
We'd like to thank you for tuning in to Body Talk with your host, Al Bridges, here on the station where we don't bring no static, but we sure enough bring the noise on staticradio.net. You guys check us out on social media where we absolutely love to hear from you on facebook.com/No Static Radio LLC, on Twitter at No Static _ Radio, Instagram at the real _ No Static Radio, and on YouTube at No Static Radio. Also, if you guys would like to listen to replays of this show and others on NoStaticRadio.net, please make sure you check us out on Mixler, Mixcloud.com. Just type in No Static Radio in the toolbar for replays of this show and all others on the platform. And for continuous streaming, check us out on TuneIn.com, LiveOnlineRadio.net, or MediaQ for continuous streaming of this show and all others on the platform. And for all things No Static Radio, including up-and-coming events, merchandise, and an in-depth look at all our great show hosts here, please check out our website at www.nostaticradio.net. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned this evening. We've got Testimony Tuesday with today's Gospel Music Radio Show with your host, the Reverend Doctor. But in the meantime and in between time, you know what it is. We got more music for your listening pleasure here on Your Voice of the Revolution, nostaticradio.net, powered by Google. Partner with Colors on YouTube and sponsored by Lamont Avenue Wines, the Cleveland Rugby League, and Hot Girls Here. You guys be safe, stay warm, enjoy this weather, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.
Not directly, but kind of. What you did? You said it was leaving us looks a mess. I said it was filthy when I was running. People got mad. I said, well, I'm just telling you the truth.
What they gonna get if they mad because they mad at themselves?
You know how we're doing. You know how to talk. Yeah, you should.
Hey, what's up,